GD disclaimer. I do have a financial interest of a product in my talk or with a company offering grant monies for this continuing dental and medical education program. As I said this morning, obviously I have an interest in the Tennant biomodulator and its accessories, my books and my lectures, etc. Okay, so we have, I think, about 45 minutes here to do some really hands-on sort of stuff that will help you understand some of the things that one can do that not only helps with dental problems but helps with systemic disease. So people often talk about the mind-body connection, but I found it was very difficult to get people to tell me what that was or what caused it. They said, well, if you have emotional problems, it often causes systemic disease. Okay, how does that work? But nobody had the answer, really. So eventually I met a physician named Joe DeRusso, who told me much of how that system works, and I'm going to share that with you now. So when the embryo begins to develop, very early on, when it's at about the 32 cell stage, there begins to be a thickening on the embryo. And that thickening is called the neural plate. And the neural plate will eventually become the nervous system. But as soon as it develops in the embryo, it begins to respond to its environment in very much of a Pavlovian sort of way. And of course, its environment is mother. And so each of us, as an embryo, began to respond to the things that our mom is feeling and experiencing at that point in time. So when mom puts out happy hormones, the embryo becomes happy. When mom puts out angry hormones, the embryo becomes angry. And so every one of us eventually develops a system of responding to our environment at that point in time, exactly the way our mother did to those kind of stimuli during that particular 9 months. Now, obviously, moms can have different experiences during different pregnancies, and so different siblings have different responses that they learn. But those responses become recorded on what is something similar to a DVD that plays 24/7 for the rest of our lives. And it is something that we have no control over. It has no channel changer. It has no volume control. It simply plays. And it's come to be called the subconscious. Now, the subconscious responds to things that are going on from moment to moment. The subconscious has no ability to consider the past or to think about the future. It only considers what it believes to be happening in its environment at that particular moment. Now, on the other hand, the other part of our nervous system that develops is called our conscious mind. And our conscious mind never considers what's going on right this moment. It's either thinking about the past or it's thinking about the future. And unfortunately, the conscious mind and the subconscious mind don't communicate with each other. The only way that they're able to communicate with each other is if you actually cross the acupuncture meridians and create an electronic channel, then they can. But in most day-to-day things, they don't, which helps us understand why it's very difficult to change the way one responds to things that happen to us with simple talk therapy. Now, of course, there are things that happen to us in our real-life experiences that can begin to change the way that we behave, but certainly our instantaneous responses are controlled by this system. Now, to sort of give you an idea about how this system works and what one can do about it, I was born in 1940 in Kansas, and of course in the 1930s in Kansas we had the Dust Bowl. And so unemployment was about 50%. Cars and homes were covered up with dirt. People simply had trouble feeding their families despite having to deal with the ongoing serious weather problems. So guess what my mom was thinking about when she was pregnant with me? How in the world am I going to take care of this kid, right? And so that became my DVD. And so for the next 70 years, no matter how much money I had in the bank, my ongoing worry was, how am I going to take care of my kids? Now, it was, of course, through much of my life, I had plenty of money. It was not realistic for me to be thinking that way or worrying that way. But remember that this has nothing to do with reality. It has to do with the programming that my DVD received when Mom was pregnant with me. Well, after I met Dr. DeRusso, he taught me how to connect the acupuncture meridians, and then simply had me repeat several times, you know, you don't really have to worry about these kids anymore. Everything's going to be all right. Something similar to that. And all of a sudden, I took a deep breath, and it was written. So I'd written an additional chapter to my DVD. So since then, I love my kids just as much as I ever did, but I don't worry about them anymore. And so the problem with having this DVD, and the reason I want you to understand it, is because it's that DVD that is the mind-body connection. And many of us were born to mothers that had things going on during the pregnancy that caused undesirable emotions. Well, when you have these emotions, you get stuck in what I've come to call sympathetic on, parasympathetic off. When people get stuck in sympathetic on mode, then not only do you drive your adrenals to the point that you burn them out, you're driving them 24 hours, 24/7, which, as I will show you, leads to low voltage. And as I discussed with you this morning, it's low voltage that keeps us from having the ability to make new cells that work. And when we don't have the ability to make new cells that work, we have chronic disease. You understand the connection between our DVD and chronic disease? When we're stuck in sympathetic on, we cannot recharge our batteries, and therefore we have low voltage, and therefore we get chronic disease because we can't repair ourselves. Now, I mentioned to you this morning about Robert Boyd's work. He's the Irish osteopath that first described the anatomy of how the body assumes a certain position when you're stuck in this position. But his theory about it being due to mechanical trauma to the sphenoid is incorrect. The correct theory was brought forward, to my belief, by Dave Limke, a Canadian from the massage therapy field of expertise. And Dave did studies at the University of Idaho in which he used EMGs attached to various muscle groups, and he was able to identify what happens when you're in sympathetic on. And basically what he found was that when you're in sympathetic on, all of your flexors are in spasm and all of your extensors are shut off. So obviously, flexor muscles are those that make a joint bend, and extensors are those that make them extend. So what happens when you are in the sympathetic on, because of the mechanisms of flexing all your flexors and telling all your extensors to stand down, you get into a defensive position that is very much what the typical karate extension position would be. So when you are in a defensive position, one of the things your body does is you rotate to put the narrowest possible amount of your body toward whatever it is that's coming after you. If it's a truck that's about to run over you, if it's a lion that's about to jump out of the tree on top of you, if somebody's coming at you with a baseball bat, you're going to turn this way. You're going to put this hand up as a defensive mechanism in front of your face. This one's going to come back into a fist. And when you do this, when you rotate in this position, you'll always bend your joints Your legs go down, and so you're like this, which gives you the best ability to either run after the thing that's going to hurt you or run away from it. And so you have the best possible options and the least likelihood you're going to get hurt. Well, that position occurs automatically without you thinking about it whenever you feel in danger. And so you rotate into this position. Now, if you don't feel in huge danger that you're going to get run over by a truck, you just see somebody in the room that you don't like or you're a little bit afraid of, you're going to do that just a little bit. So things will rotate just a bit. You also do that when you're driving a car, sitting at a computer or whatever. Now, when you're in that situation, all of your horizontal diaphragms are tilted. So what are the horizontal diaphragms? They're the bottom of your feet, they're your ankles, your knees, your hips, the diaphragm in your body, the top of your shoulders, and the base of your skull. And so all of the position that I showed you this morning, where your ears are on crooked, your shoulders are bent, your pelvis is rotated, etc., is all a function of being in the sympathetic on posture. Did I explain that well enough? You understand why we get into that posture? Just being in sympathetic on. Now, as I will remind you, our portable power supply is that our muscles are piezoelectric and thus recharge themselves when they move. But if your nervous system is telling half of your muscle groups to be in spasm and the other half to stand down, it makes it much more difficult to recharge them, doesn't it? Because they can't move efficiently and recharge. So one of the things that one needs to do at the beginning of any therapy session is to get control of the autonomic nervous system and to balance it. To my way of thinking, there are three distinct segments of this process of balancing the autonomic nervous system. And so I want to show them to you and teach you how to do them. Now, we discussed with some this morning about the bowling ball syndrome and how to fix it and the things you see with it. But what I want to do is demonstrate to you how easy it is to correct the bowling ball syndrome and thus correct the anatomy. So if I could borrow a victim. Okay, come up here, sir, if you would. Now, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Instead of you coming up here, in order for everybody to see, come with me. I'm going to show people here, and then we'll get another person and do it over there. So you guys down there, take a little nap. I'll be there in just a minute. So if you would stand right here and face the crowd for me. I don't know if he has the bowling ball syndrome or not, but we'll take a look and see. The first thing I want you to do is look at him and see if you can tell if his ears are on crooked. And then the next thing, see if he has one shoulder higher than the other. And then perhaps you can see if his pelvis is rotated. Now, another thing that often happens is that they'll have one eyelid that's droopy, and if so, the opposite maxilla will be flattened. So I always, when I get ready to do this, ask permission to touch their ears. May I touch your ears?
Yeah.
Okay. So I come up and I get close like this and look, and you can see that his left ear is almost half an inch lower than his right ear. Can you perceive that? Okay. And if I put my fingers on the end of his clavicles, you'll see that his right clavicle, his right shoulder is lower than the left one. And then if I put my hands on the top of his hips, you'll be able to see that his pelvis is rotated. Even though I can't look at it, I can tell that his pelvis is rotated because his ears are on crooked. 100% of the time, if the ears are on crooked, the pelvis is rotated. Isn't that interesting? Okay, go ahead and turn this way a little more so these folks over here can see. Everybody appreciate that his pelvis is rotated? Okay. Now the other thing I want to show you is if you'll turn this way and just face this wall over here, I want you to just close your eyes and stand there. And what you'll see is he stands very still because his craniosacral pump is off. A normal person will be swaying back and forth 10 times a minute as the pump works. His is off. How did I know it's off? Because his ears are on crooked. Okay? Okay, you can wake up. So we're going to fix this for him. And the position that I'm going to use is the one you see on the screen. What I want to do is to find the position that is at the posterior border of his strap muscle and about halfway between the bottom of his ear and the top of his shoulder, as you see in the diagram. So I simply take the biomodulator and I put it in automatic mode, and I put it on that spot and say, tell me when you feel a little tingle. And then I turn it back down about 20%. And then I say to him, every once in a while you'll feel a little prickle on this side of your neck, but it shouldn't be unpleasant. If it is, tell me so I can turn it down. The main thing that will aggravate you is how tightly I'm squeezing your neck. And I'm squeezing very tightly because I want to get energy to down below the muscle, because that's where the 11th cranial nerve is and also the small intestine 19 position is. And so I press it firmly to flatten that muscle. So most people complain more about me squeezing their neck than anything else. We hold it there for just 1 minute. We're at 42 seconds, so not much longer. And then we'll do the other side. What happens when we put energy into this particular spot on the side of the neck is that we balance the autonomic nervous system. And so the sympathetic will be modulated down, the parasympathetic up, and once we do that, then the flexors will come out of spasm and the extensors will turn back on. So now we put it right here. Tell me when you feel a little tingle. And turn it down a bit. And then just hold it there again for 1 minute.
Are you working on cranial nerve 11?
Yes.
Which supplies it to pieces in the CM?
Yes.
That's the only thing it does. The trapezius is part of the sympathetic chain power supply, and the SCM is on the parasympathetic system. And so he's pointing out that the nerve supplies two muscles. So the point is that when we energize this area, it will automatically balance the autonomic nervous system. It's the only way I know how to do that. And I have to tell you that of all the things I know how to do in medicine, I get more bang for the buck out of doing this than anything else. And as you can see, it only takes 2 minutes plus the time to move from one side to the other. Okay, we're finished now, so I'm going to have him move everything. So turn your neck right and left as far as it'll go. And move your shoulders around. Pretend you're a Maytag washer. And then walk a few steps and come back to me. So we're allowing everything to readjust, because remember, his spine was F-shaped, his pelvis was rotated, etc. So now if you'll just face the audience here, I'm going to touch your ears again, and you'll see that his ears are on straight now. And let's look over this direction. Turn your body with me so everybody can see that your ears are on straight. And look over this direction, and ears are on straight. Now the shoulders correct about 80% immediately. The other 20% comes tomorrow. There's a 24-hour cycle in the acupuncture system, so his shoulders will be perfectly straight tomorrow, but his hips are already straight, as you can see. And again, the reason I know his hips are straight is because his ears are on straight. And then if we just have him face this wall and look over here and close his eyes, you'll see he starts to sputter. You'll see him start to move just a little bit. There he goes. See him going? And he goes back a little. But at this point, it's always a little irregular. If you look at him an hour from now, it'll be a nice, smooth, 10 times a minute. Thank you very much. All right, so I need another victim. Okay, so we're going to work right here. How are you? Good. Good. So we're going to just have you look at all of our friends out here and let them see if your ears are on crooked, and if your shoulders are crooked, and if your pelvis is rotated. Kind of turn around, let everybody get a look at you. Sometimes if the light's just right, you'll see as a droopy eyelid on one side and a flattened cheek on the other side. May I touch your ears? Okay, so if we look here, we can see that his right ear is almost an inch lower than his left. You see that? Turn with me now. Can you see how much lower his right ear is than his left? Okay. And if we look at his shoulders, again, the shoulders are crooked and his pelvis is crooked. The other thing I want you to notice is I want you to turn a little more this way. See how he's kind of stoop-shouldered here? That's part of this same syndrome. A few years ago, I had a friend, a famous ophthalmologist in New York named Herb Byron. I hadn't seen her for about 10 years because I'd been sick. And we gave a course up there, and Herb came in like this. Said, "Hi, Herb, what happened?" "Oh, just, I guess, got old." So Barbara, that works with me, did his bowling ball. Took her, she had to do it twice, but now he was standing just like this. And he goes home, and his wife, Bryn, says, "My God, Herb, did somebody hit you with a baseball bat and straighten you up?" What I want you to notice is not only do we get him aligned this direction, but some of this is going to be better as well. Okay, so again, if you look down there and close your eyes, you'll see that he stands still because his pump's off. Okay? All right, so let's fix it. So you can go ahead and face our friends out here, and I'll turn the device on, and again, I'm going to put it in the automatic mode, and we're going to look for this spot here that's just at the posterior border of the strap muscle. Tell me when you feel a tingle. Turn the volume down about 20%. And again, I'm going to hold this here for 1 minute. Every once in a while, you'll feel a little prickle at the side of your neck, but it shouldn't be unpleasant. If it is, tell me so I can turn it down. Is it too hot? It's good. So again, the main thing that will aggravate you is how tightly I'm squeezing your neck. Automatic. Yep. Automatic is automatic infinity. So I could do the same thing with the infinity frequency set. The only thing is I like to hold it there for a minute, and automatic mode gives me a timer. And there's nothing really magical about 60 seconds versus some other time. I've just found that 60 seconds almost always works, and so it's a no-brainer if I just hold it here till the bell rings. Okay? Okay, we're at 51 seconds, so almost finished here. Well, I'm squeezing his whole neck so I can flatten the sternocleidomastoid muscle and get down to the stuff that's underneath it. You see what's underneath the muscle here versus here? So here, I've taken the muscle off over here, and you can see the 11th cranial nerve coming here. Okay, now we need to do the other side. And we put it right here. Tell me when you feel a little tingle. Turn it down about 20%. And then again, we just hold it here. Tell me if it becomes unpleasant. Sir? The question is, how long will it last after I fix it? And it depends a lot on his situation. If his DVD is very strong, he'll be out again in the morning. The other thing that makes a difference is whether or not he's hypothyroid. If he's hypothyroid and all of his voltages are low, then he'll most likely be out again in the morning. On the other hand, if his thyroid levels are normal and all of his voltages are normal, then this can last for weeks and months. However, there was an interesting study done at Southern Methodist University in which they did standard psychological testing, and then they had the participants do this to themselves every morning for 21 days, and then they repeated the test. And in 100% of them, the tests all moved in the positive direction. People felt happier, more centered, more balanced, slept better, and all that stuff. Okay, move everything. Turn your head right and left. Move your shoulders around. Pretend you're a Maytag. Walk a few steps and come back to me. And then again, we'll touch your ears and see what happens here. And as you can see, his ears are on straight now. Aim over this direction. Okay. And now they're straight again. And straight again. And shoulders, you could get about an 80% correction immediately, but his
His pelvis will be straight now. And then if you just face the wall down there and close your eyes, you'll see that he begins to sputter. There he goes. Again, his pump is starting to come back on, and you'll see him start to go back and forth as his craniosacral pump reactivates. There he goes. See it? Now, one of the things that I would mention, he's not quite there, but he's on his way, and that is those of us who either have gray hair or no hair oftentimes have really rusty joints. If we've been in this position for 50 years or more, sometimes been 50 years been in that position our whole lives, then it's difficult when the muscles go back to work to get us straight again. And so sometimes we have to do this more aggressively. So particularly you'll look and see, you'll notice that I helped him just a little bit, but he's not quite perfect here. But I think you'll agree he's better, right? So with just one treatment, he's better. The thing that one can do, particularly you'll see this in people who, the older they get, the more this is, that you'll do it and you don't quite get there. In which case, you get permission, you say, I didn't quite get what I wanted. In order to fix this, I need to do something that's really unpleasant for about 5 or 6 seconds. Can you put up with that? Yes. And when they say yes, then you have permission and that they'll work with you. And what you do is instead of bringing it up till they feel it, you bring it all the way up as high as the power will go. When you do that, you put the muscles into spasm like that, and those rusty joints give up, and now they're straight as an arrow. So in people where you don't quite get all you want, then you do it the aggressive way. Thanks for your help. Now, the next part of fixing this has to do with the pelvis. What happens I don't think I have a pointer. What happens is, let's see if can you see my mouse? Nope, no mouse. Okay, here's a pointer. Thank you very much. What happens when you get into that defensive posture, this hip rotates forward and down, this one rotates back and up, and your sacrum rotates this direction in a right-handed person. In a left-handed person who goes this way, it's just the opposite. So what happens is that when you're stuck in this sympathetic on mode, that your pelvis tends to lock up where your sacrum here locks right there. Can you see how that might happen? If this is rotating this way, that right there is going to lock up on the hip bone there. So again, over here, when this rotates this way, you're going to lock up right there. So there you can see I've got an arrow in where you get locked up. So obviously, if your pelvis is stuck like that, it has a tendency to cause the lower lumbar vertebra to stick as well. So what one does is you simply need to give it a little nudge and it will get fixed. So again, I need a victim. Okay, please come forward. Now, it'll be a little bit hard for you to see, and if some of you want me to help you with this after the session, we can get out in the hall or someplace where we don't bother anybody, and I'll show you some more. But if you'll face toward the other way. Yeah, let's go this way. So if you take and find the top of the hips and follow them down to where you get to the sacrum, you can put your thumbs on both sides like that. I'm in your way. You basically are putting your thumbs on these spots. Can you all see what I'm talking about? They're what you see. I'm putting them right here. Okay? So when I put them there, I can tell if if in a right-handed person, the right thumb will be forward or anterior because that's the hip that goes forward, right? And so if we turn her back around and I check those like this, I can tell if she's got this problem. Did I explain that well enough? Okay, so of course normally I would sit in a chair and she'd be in front of me and I would get down like this and I would feel that, and she does have a right-handed pattern because my right thumb is forward. So I simply take my activator, which is I left over here, a little trip hammer, and so where I put my right thumb, I go an inch below that and I tap it to unlock it. And then because the sacrum is rotated like that, I'm going to bump it here and bump it up here to make it go back where it belongs. You see that? So I simply come in here until I hit bone, and up here until I hit bone. And now this hip came forward, so I just tap it in the front. This one is too high, so I make it go down and in and forward. And then just have her bend over, bend straight forward to stretch her back. And then when she comes back up and I retest it, it's going to be straight. And there it is, straight as can be. Thank you. So anybody down here have back pain? Aha. Pick me. So again, what you're doing is that you're trying to put your thumbs right about here on these bumps, and if this one is forward of that one, then this hip rotated forward, which is what happens when you go into that karate stance. This one rotates forward, you see? And so I would take and sit down here and feel these spots, and men, it's right under their belt usually. And he actually has a left-handed pattern. Are you left-handed? No. It's interesting. You'll see this every once in a while, that a right-handed person has a left-handed pattern, which he does. So we come again an inch below that, bump it, bump it, bump it. Make this hip go back, this hip go down, and this hip go in. And rock it forward, and now bend forward to stretch yourself. Come back up. And now you're straight. That's all there is to it. Thank you. Okay, so we have done the first two steps of getting control of the autonomic nervous system. We fixed the bowling ball syndrome, and we've made sure that the lower back is going to be straight and allow the energy to flow through there correctly. Now, the third thing we have to deal with are digestive valves. The valves that we have at different stations in our GI tract are controlled by the autonomic nervous system. So they're closed when food is supposed to stay where it is, and they open then with the sympathetic nervous system to allow it to move to the next station. So by stations, obviously, I mean stomach, small intestine, large intestine, right? Well, when we're stuck in sympathetic on, these valves are often stuck open. So the valve between the stomach and the esophagus is right here at the back. Here we go. So here's T11, and it's about an inch to the left side and slightly above T11 is where the valve is between the esophagus and the stomach. So again, if I could borrow another victim over here. Okay, anybody? Come ahead. So what we're going to do is, I need you to slip your jacket off, if you would, please.
Okay, so we're going to just muscle test him to be sure that he can be muscle tested. So we'll put the thumb and index finger together and say be strong. Hold it now. So he's nice and strong. You see that? And then we turn around here a bit and we find his lower ribs. And that's T12. So up one bump is T11. And just to the left of it. So I want you to take these two fingers, put it where my finger is. Yep. So again, we found his lower rib, came up, and that's T12. Up one bump is T11. An inch that way and slightly up is where that is. And so then I take this again, and I say, I'll turn you just a little so they can see. Be strong. Be strong. Okay, you can see that he's weaker. Would you agree with that? Would you agree that it's weaker? Take your hand away back there. Be strong. Put it back if you can. Okay, so that valve's open. And then we're going to now look at the next valve. And the pyloric valve, as you can see, is if we find the bottom of the rib cage and come across to the midline and go back out and slightly up, that's where we'll find that valve. And so it's in muscle testing, it has a lot to do with focusing of intention as to the response that you get. Okay, so if we look at where his rib cage ends here, so his valve is going to be about there. So again, two fingers right there. Let's use your other hand. Press deeply right there and go to this one. Be strong. Be strong. Take it away. Be strong. Can you tell the difference? Yeah. So that valve's open as well. Now the ileocecal valve, you find the anterior portion of the hip here, find the belly button, and draw a line between them. A third of the way up that line is called McBurney's point, so two fingers on McBurney's point. That's ileocecal valve. Be strong. Be strong. Take your fingers away. Be strong. So all of his valves are open. So he's stuck in sympathetic on. So if I tested, most likely his ears are on crooked, right? Wouldn't you predict that? Yeah. So he's stuck in sympathetic on. So what I would normally do is I'd fix that. I'd fix his sacrum, and then I'd fix his valves. Well, to fix the valves, you use the biotransducer. The transducer, let me say this a better way. When you're using the biomodulator and you put it onto an acupuncture system, then you're using that system to take the energy where you want it to go, and or you're simply recharging that battery pack. But if we take a device that creates a magnetic field but has the ability to let us modulate frequencies onto it, it's like an FM radio station. Sends out a carrier and then it modulates sound on it, right? That's basically what we're doing here. So we simply take and put this in infinity mode, bring the power up as high as it'll go. Almost there. There we go. So we simply take and put this where his pyloric valve is, and actually I can feel a magnetic field. It's right there. So grab a hold of that for me. Grab a hold of this. Hold it there, and I'll be back in about 3 minutes. Okay, so I need a victim down here. Here we go. How are you? Good. So I'm going to scoot you over out of this light just a bit. There we go.
I've actually been having problems with my ileocecal valve. So
Problems with her valve. I hate that when that happens. Okay, so we're going to put her thumb and ring finger together and say, be strong. She's nice and strong, so we can test her. By the way, if she were weak when we started here, I wouldn't be able to test her till I fixed it. So in the biomodulator, there's a set of frequencies called bioterminal step.
She simply hold on to handlebars, run through that for 9 minutes, and then she'll be strong again. So it's a great way to make people strong. So you could test this valve back here, but to test her pyloric valve, you find the bottom of the rib cage, come to the center, come over and up about an inch, so right there. So 2 fingers from your other hand.
Right here?
Use your other hand if you would.
Sorry.
2 fingers and press deeply there, right against your valve. And goes to the ring finger and be strong. And of course she's open, see that? Be strong again. Take your fingers away. Take these fingers away. And now be strong again. You see? Can you tell the difference?
I mean, I knew it was going to be open, but I could differentiate.
All right. So this has nothing to do with you being blonde? No, okay, just checking. So now we're going to check the ileocecal valve. So we find the point on the front of her hip, which is right there. Find her belly button, which is going to be right in there somewhere, and they draw a line between them. A third of the way up is McBurney's point. So 2 fingers, those 2 fingers, press deeply right there against your valve. And be strong, and of course her valve's wide open. You see that, how weak she is? Take your fingers away over there. Be strong now. Put them back. Press deeply, be strong. Okay, so her valves are open, right? So then what would you predict is going on with her? Sympathetic on, right? So touch your ears. May I touch your ears?
Yes.
Okay, so let's see if we can find an ear here. There's one. And there's one. And you can see that her right ear is really quite much a bit lower than her left. You see that? So we would want to fix her bowling ball first and then come fix her valves. So don't run away. I got a fellow waiting for me down here. Okay, so what we're going to do is lay the device down for a moment. And we're going to test to see if that closed. So 2 fingers there. And be strong over here. And he's strong as an ox. Now his valve's closed, you see? So that's how you close them. So we would do the same thing on his ileocecal valve. And of course then we got his valves all closed. Remember though, we always want to do the ears first, the bowling ball first, sacrum second, valves third, if we want them to hold. Thanks for your help. If you want me to close the other valve, we'll do it at the end because I'm supposed to stop talking right now and I've got another couple of valves to close here. Okay, so she's got a valve that's open right there and you can feel the magnetic field. This has magnet in it. She has a magnet around this open valve. If I run them close together, I can actually feel the 2 grab each other. So hold that right there for me. And just let that run for a couple of minutes. So basically, that's probably about all the time I have to talk to you about, but I don't want to leave until I tell you this. Almost all back pain is due to an open ileocecal valve. And the problems that happen when you're in sympathetic on and your pelvis is rotated. It's my understanding from the literature that the success rate of spine surgeons taking care of low back pain is 35%. And that makes sense to me now that I understand what causes it, because very rarely is low back pain due to a disc. What commonly happens is that when you're in sympathetic on, your pelvis rotates, and so now the muscles are having to carry the load on half of your body, which doesn't make them happy. Plus, the flexors are in spasm, and the extensors are told to stand down. Well, the problem is that if you look at this picture up on the screen, what you see is the psoas muscle runs right down on the anterior portion of the spine, you see? It's what holds the front of the spine together. And when the valve here is open, feces reflux back into the small intestine, which makes it unhappy. And all this whole area then becomes swollen and infected, causing that psoas muscle to be in spasm as well as be incompetent. It happens that that muscle is on the liver circuit. It's on the same circuit. It is part of the power supply to the liver. So one of the things that one will want to do in treating low back pain is, first of all, do the things I've just taught you, including close that valve, and then go to measure the voltage in the liver circuit, which will almost certainly be low. Put the patches on and ramp up the voltage, recharge that stack of batteries, and the back pain is history. So let's see what's going on here with your valve.
Is it manually possible to close your arm like ileocecal valve? Because they show you like YouTube videos on how to do that.
Her question is, can you do it manually? Because they show YouTube videos on how to do it. I've tried the manual way. It's been successful 5% of the time. I've never really found that very successful. This works 100% of the time.
It feels different, for sure.
Okay, so we worked on your pyloric valve. Let's see if we got it closed. So be strong here now. Oh, yeah. So all we need to do now is to fix her ileocecal valve, which is going to be, let me find it for you, right there. Okay, so, well, I'm going to have to quit or the hole in the floor is going to open up and swallow me again. So I'm sorry I didn't have more time to teach you more things, but I appreciate your attention. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Say it again.
Pump that we're trying to stimulate and get this flowing. Is it a bar receptor feedback mechanism? Like, is it pressure activated? Could you manually give yourself like a massage and get that pump going without?
Good question. The question, if I understand what she asked me, is about the craniosacral pump, and she's talking about can you manually turn it back on. You know, craniosacral therapy was developed by Roland Becker in attempts to do that. When I was trained to do craniosacral therapy, I had 7 instructors in my class. 100% of them still had the bowling ball, which means obviously they hadn't done a very good job of treating the instructors. What I found was that to get people back straight using craniosacral therapy would take me 4 to 6 months of working with them several times a week. As you can see, I can do it the same thing in 2 minutes, so I abandoned that method. Okay? All right, let's see what's happening with her valve. Okay, 2 fingers on it. Press deeply. Be strong, and your valve is closed. Congratulations.
Is there acupuncture points which connect the subconscious and conscious mind? You said you have acupuncture points to connect. Which ones?
You just have to connect your arms and your legs. That'll work. Well, again, thank you so much for allowing me to be here. If you want to know anything more, I am talking again tonight at 7 to 9, and we'll have some more fun then if you want to come. Thank you.
flights of stairs.